Good evening, everybody. Thank you and welcome for coming to our first EKMHA event of the season. We wanted to first mention our condolences to a member that had passed in our constituency recently, and our condolences go out to Barb Martins and family on the passing of Bill Martins. In an effort to maintain the preservation commitments of EKMHA, we've been talking a lot at the board level about different stories and legacy and how to kind of make that happen. That has grown into a concept called My Family Story. Please join me in welcoming the first of our My Family Story concepts. I'm introducing Gerhard Thiessen for the family story of Gerhard and Katharina Thiessen. Round of applause, please.
O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me until I proclaim your might to the next generation, your power to all those to come. Good evening. You must forgive me for using notes, but at the age of 93, the memory is not what it used to be. So I'm relying on my journal notes and the memoirs I wrote for our time together. May I recommend starting to document your life sooner rather than later. The time goes by so very fast, and so much happens that it becomes hard to remember. But that is no excuse. This is something we must do. We must pass along to the next generation the wisdom that we have gained through the faithfulness of God. My name is Gerhard Jakob Thiessen. I am 93 years old, nearing the end of my life. The words of Paul to Timothy come to mind. As for me, my life already has been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. I am so honored that you would be interested in my story. It began on November 13th, 1894, in Hochfeld, in Ekaterinoslav province, Ukraine, where I was born to Jakob Heinrich Thiessen and Aganitha Epp Wiens. I have 5 older siblings, 2 brothers, and 3 sisters. Brother Frank was 10 years older than I, and brother Aaron died as a child. Then followed 3 sisters, Tina, Agnetha, and Susan. The last 2 were my playmates. I had no brother my age to play with, so I had to play by myself or with the girls. Nowadays, boys play with cars and tractors. I played with long branches. They were the horses that I rode. I also had a little wagon, and in winter, a slide. So I spent a lot of time playing with those. In the winter, when it was cold and I wasn't in school yet, I kept mother company and often did some naughty things that didn't please her very much. For example, I once took the belt from her sewing machine and threw it into the fire. Yeah. Another time, I took one of her spools of thread and her scissors, and I cut through the spool of thread. And Mother wondered where all the short threads were coming from. She was wondering who could have done this. Her dear little boy? He was the only one there. There was no one else there. I had to do penance for it, and I never did it again. In those days, there was good medicine to cure a child of misbehaving. Parents followed the recipe of King Solomon, who spares the rod, hates his son. Well, my mother did not hate me, but loved me, so I too got to feel the strap. Now that I am old, I can see that it would have been very beneficial if I had experienced the strap a little bit more often. Regarding my upbringing, I mention my mother more than father, and the reason for this was that it was my father's second marriage. In his first marriage, father had 6 children, 2 girls and 4 boys. When he was 53 years old, his wife died. A year and 9 months later, he married a young widow who was 29 years younger than he was. And by the time I was born, Father was 65 years old and had aged considerably, leaving the duty of child rearing to his much younger wife. And this she carried out with an iron hand. Now back to my two playmates, my sisters. They often played with dolls, more than little girls do today. Sometimes the dolls would become sick and die. Of course, the doll bodies had to be buried, and for that, Father had a doll coffin made by the carpenter, which the girls decorated and laid the body inside. The grave was dug, naturally not too deep, and then the funeral was celebrated according to all Mennonite rules and traditions. The two mothers of the doll sat beside the coffin and wept, and I had been chosen to be the minister. I stood on a chair with a thick book in my hands and delivered the sermon. I don't remember now the content of the sermon, but when I was finished, I jumped down from the chair, got my little red wagon, the hearse, and we placed the coffin on it and drove off to the cemetery. There the coffin was put into the grave and covered with dust. With bowed heads and deeply in grief, we left the cemetery. If there was a meal afterwards, I can't remember. The grieving didn't last very long, though, because the girls soon needed their doll again. The human dead don't stay in the grave forever either, but experience resurrection when their time has come. So with this doll child, it was dug up and had such a resurrection, but remained what it was before, a dead doll. Another memory from my preschool days. We had a children's wagon that we played with a lot, and it was a beautiful spring day that I was put into the wagon with Brother Frank pulling and the girls pushing. We set out for the meadow, perhaps to pick flowers. There, Frank discovered a snake, coiled up in a shallow hole. Snakes were always killed, and so too this one. But it had such a thick stomach, Frank wanted to find out what the reason for this was. He took his knife out of his pocket, cut off the snake's head, and with a stick stroked out the contents. What did we see? A young bird appeared, still alive. It had no feathers yet. The snake had swallowed the baby bird apparently only a short while before. Well satisfied, the snake was just lying there to digest its meal. When we got home, we were able to tell about our adventure, and Frank considered himself a hero who, as surgeon, had achieved something great. Most people have a loathing of snakes. They look so ugly and false and make a sinister, revolting impression. Is it because God cursed this animal above all animals in the world, because it had tempted Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden? We must beware of the tempter, who still today tries to draw people. I could tell you many more childhood shenanigans, but we must move on. Let's look at my ancestors for a moment. My grandfather, Heinrich H. Thiessen, bought 5,130 acres of land in 1848 and established the estate of Hochfeld. When he died in 1859, the estate was divided among his 8 surviving children. My father received 1,068.75 acres with some structures on the land, and it was referred to as Neu-Hochfeld in 1876. Now let me tell you, Hochfeld was a considerable estate. As you can see in the photo, there's a large house surrounded by beautiful mature trees and gardens. And here you see the back of the house. There was a large stable for 4 teams of horses and carriages. There were barns and paddocks for the oxen and livestock. And here you see one of the 4 teams of horses, a carriage, and a driver ready to go. We employed 30 to 50 Russian workers who had their own living quarters with a cook, and we had 6 maids working in our home. When I reached 6 years of age, it was time for me to begin school. The area in which we lived included 8 estates, each having about 800 to 1,300 acres of land. Each landowner had built a schoolhouse on his property, and every year classes were held at a different estate. The teacher was given living quarters on the yard where the school was that year. My first year of school was spent on our yard, as it was our turn to host. I was only 10 years old when my father died in 1905. This was during the Russian-Japanese War as the revolution broke out. My brother Frank stepped in and took care of the family business, and he did a great job because we continued to prosper. Despite the great loss of my father, I completed the estate school program by the time I was 13. I continued my education at Central Schule in Orloff rather than in Halbstadt because it had a better reputation. Then I continued my studies at Kommerzschule in Halbstadt. My education was interrupted when World War I broke out. I left school to work as an orderly on the Red Cross trains, evacuating the wounded from the front and bringing them to Moscow, Petersburg, and all over. After serving for 1 year, a government proclamation appeared in the newspapers, offering students the opportunity to return to school and finish their studies. I returned to complete my studies at Kommerzinstitut in Kharkov, but the area became so restless with the movement of the Red Army that we stayed only 2 months and then returned home to Hochfeld and the onset of the Russian Revolution. Anti-German sentiment was strong throughout the country, and the economic well-being of the Mennonite colonists made them targets. After the arrival of the German army in March of 1918, the lawlessness subsided, and we enjoyed one last summer on the estate. Our foreman and 5 or 6 Russian workers had taken good care of it, and our family left Hochfeld for good when the German army withdrew. The hostile mood among the area peasants resulted in our house being burned and our property scattered everywhere. There was nothing left, not a dog nor a cat. At this point, we fled to the village of Schonau in the Moluchna colony to begin again. We had nothing, and it was time for new beginnings. We were able to live with in my half-brother's house as they had moved, and it was empty. I decided one of the new beginnings I found here would impact the rest of my life. I decided to join the youth activities with my sister Sousa. We also joined the choir and attended choir practice twice a week at the school. But it wasn't long until the rehearsals were banned and in the schools, and teachers were not allowed to direct the choir. So we met in private homes, and I, of all people, was selected to be the choir director. Now, there was a young woman in the choir who had captivated me, Katja Enns. She also had an eye, or both, on me. And so it happened that we got to know each other better, and I began to call on her. In those days, the young women were escorted home from choir practice by the young men, and so I began to escort Katja home. In summer, we, that is, all of us guys, got together in the evenings and sat on the porch and entertained ourselves. The girls joined us too. But when 2 people are interested in each other, it isn't enough anymore to see each other only in a group. They want to be alone sometimes too. What took place then remains untold. Just this much. We loved each other and wanted to enter a union for life. During this time, I joined the Selbstschutz, a self-defense unit. The German army, before their withdrawal from South Russia, trained us to protect the villages against bandits and the anarchists. But there were times we found ourselves fighting regular army units. In the midst of all this turmoil, Katya and I were engaged. The text was Psalm 118, verses 24 and 25, which read, "This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save us, we beseech thee, O Lord. O Lord, we beseech thee, give us success." The wedding date was set for September the 7th, 1920. The fighting in June 1920 marked the beginning of the end of this phase of turbulent years in the colony. The Selbstschutz members were drafted into the White Army. This meant that our wedding had to be postponed. Oh, I was so very disappointed and sad, especially to be causing Katya such stress and uncertainty. At the end of October, my division was taken prisoner by the Red Cavalry. After being relieved of all our possessions and warm clothing, we were marched over the mountain, wearing only lice-infested rags. In the evening, as we were lined up to be shot, or so we thought, a White Army plane flew overhead, scattering the Reds and prisoners alike. Several companions and I managed to escape in the darkness and began to walk home. After 2 days and nights, begging food along the way and avoiding Red officers, we finally reached Schoenau, home at last. After getting cleaned up and deloused, I went to greet my bride. The joy was great, and all that happens at such a meeting is not shared. Our wedding was held on January 23rd, 1921, at Katya's grandmother's house, and somehow the entire village fit into the house. My new wedding suit had been stolen from me, so I was married in borrowed clothes. The ceremony was performed by David Dirksen from Fishhow, using the text Jude 20 and 21. "But you, beloved, build yourselves up on your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Spirit, keeping yourselves in the love of God, waiting for the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ unto eternal life." The honeymoon was spent in our new home at the other end of the village. It was cold and Katya froze. Now you may wonder why this slide is blank. Well, in 1921, the chemicals needed to develop films was not available, and so we have no pictures of our wedding day. Severe drought struck Russia in 1921, resulting in crop failure, which was aggravated by the plague that broke out amongst the cattle. The grain harvest in one village fell significantly from the onset of the war to 1922. The resulting famine was far-reaching and affected the Moluchna colony as well. One of grandmother's cows died, leaving the family with only one cow. Grain was scarce, having been confiscated by the new government and then left to rot at the train stations. My dear sister Sousa died in 1922, only 10 months after her marriage and pregnant with her first child. She died of hunger when everything was so scarce. Her husband was the oldest son of Bernhard Wiens, and they ate at his mother's house with a number of other people. They had nothing. They ate cabbage and nothing more. Sousa had a cow that she took along to the Wiens, but they used it only for milk. It was a very scarce time. Sousa often came to visit grandmother. They didn't have flour anymore, and we still had a little bit. So one day we had noodles for lunch, and Sousa stayed. She ate well. She stayed for supper too, and again, they had prepared something good. That evening, she said to Grandma, "What a wonderful day. Twice I've been able to eat until I was completely satisfied." Oh, how I miss her. The end of the revolution brought with it some political stability. Mennonite leaders began to petition the Soviet government for permission to emigrate, and at the same time began looking for a suitable country to go to. Canada seemed to be the most suitable. By August of 1922, 17,000 prospective immigrants had signed up and were ready to go. But obstacles like financing, transportation, and medical pre-screening delayed things. And as the economic outlook improved in the Ukraine, the decision to leave became a little more difficult. We didn't know, should we leave or not? During that time, our first child, Hilda, was born, a little girl born on June 12, 1923. What a contrast she brought. The ugliness of political unrest and the pure beauty of a wife and husband meeting their daughter for the first time, becoming a new little family. At first, I was not for the idea of immigration because if we immigrated, we would have even less. But my brother wanted to leave, and the rest of the family too, and I didn't want to stay behind alone. So we, Frank and his family too, made the decision to immigrate. And the cousins, the Hildebrands and the Weenses said, the Thiessens won't immigrate, they'll just stand and peek around the corner. But the Thiessens made up their mind. One Sunday, Frank and I said, okay, we'll immigrate. Let them say what they want. So we walked to the village where they were taking names and put our names on the list. When we got permission, we had to form groups. We were given freight wagons, and each wagon had to have someone in charge. So we were with Frank and Susan, and then there were the Crokers, a family with 2 boys and a girl. We all had a wagon together. Still, it took 2 years until we could leave. When the time came, we sold our things, practically gave them away. There were so many auctions, everything went very cheap. When I went to exchange the rubles into dollars, there were 3 school friends there. When I said I wanted to immigrate, they said, "What are you thinking? Stay here. See how everything is getting better?" But I had sold everything. We had 96,000 rubles in the bank, didn't get 1 cent for it. The Reds took charge of that. We were examined in Halbstadt by a Canadian doctor, and we were all healthy. The day we were supposed to board the train, Katja had the malaria fever and was very sick and very thin. We boarded the train in Lichtenau. There were 1,200 people immigrating in the first group. We came to Riga and then to Libau, where we boarded a ship. When we went through the Red Gate, then we were happy. We were free. We felt great. From Libau, we went to Belgium, where we boarded the ocean liner. When we went to board, we again came before a committee. There was a physician right at the end, and he suddenly asked, "Have you had the sickness?" Then he said, "When you get that far, don't say that you have had malaria. Say that you are so thin because of the baby." Katja, mother, baby Hilda, and I arrived in Quebec on the Minnedosa, a ship of the Canadian Pacific Line, in July of 1924. We traveled by train to Waterloo and were welcomed by Moses Hunsberger. And our ultimate intention was to settle in the West, but in the meantime, I worked as a hired hand for the Hunsbergers that first season in Canada. Then I was given the opportunity to move to Pelee Island and work a farm on shares. This meant that we were provided with the implements, the cattle, and anything else we needed to do the work, and for this, we got half of the proceeds of the crop. We arrived on the island April 12, 1925, followed by many other immigrant Mennonite families. Life on the island was good, but not a lifestyle that some embraced. It required some additional planning due to transportation to and from the mainland. From April to December, it was a ferry service taking 90 minutes for a crossing. And in the winter, the only options were flying in and out or walking across the frozen lake. Some drove, with varying degrees of success. In late November, Katja would go to the mainland to shop for the winter. She would bring back 5 or 6 100-pound bags of white flour, 4 or 5 100-pound bags of white sugar, 4 to 5 bags of apples, and anything else she might need. This supplemented all the food that had been canned over the summer. Many people found the isolation of the island unbearable and returned to the mainland, including ministers. As a result of these transitions, I became assistant lay minister in 1932 and then lay minister in 1936. It took some persuasion to accept this challenge. I did not feel capable or qualified. The children were still too young to help out on the farm, so I sometimes had to borrow from the night, sitting up until 2, 3 a.m. to prepare my sermons. My ministry continued on the mainland in a larger capacity, which also included Sunday morning German devotionals on the radio, and I retired from all of this in 1967. But one of my favorite ways to see if the children were listening in church was to make them repeat the text of the sermon and a brief outline at the Sunday dinner table. Uncle Harry and Aunt Irene and Uncle Vic, I don't know if you remember that, but... And here you see our second home on Pelee Island on McCormick Road. And here, farm work was endless, and Hilda here is harvesting tobacco. And my daughters, Martha and Irene, not old enough for farm chores yet, but it wouldn't be long until they found themselves hoeing soybeans, cutting asparagus, and picking tomatoes. By 1942, the family had grown to include Hilda, Kay, George, Erica, Agnes, Harold, Elfrida, Martha, and Irene. The decision was made to move to the mainland from the island because we didn't want the children integrating too much with the English. We wanted them to stay set apart in the Mennonite community. We moved to Concession 11, Mercia Township on the mainland on April the 1st, 1943. Soon after arriving on the mainland, Victor was born, completing our family. I farmed for Mr. Gregory, a very rich man, a millionaire who gained his wealth from the tobacco business. The farm belonged to him, and I worked for him on shares. I had my own tractor, implements, and horses, so I got 60% and he kept 40%. We grew tobacco, soybeans, corn, and wheat. Our family is complete and yet growing. Hilda is not in this photo because she is already married to George Conrad and has a daughter and son herself, our first grandchildren. In 1950, at the age of 56, I purchased my own farm on the 8th concession, 75 acres for $9,000. The house had no central heat, but there was running water. And later, I was able to add another 50 acres to what I had. Growing tobacco was replaced with asparagus and tomatoes. Katya's vegetable and flower gardens were her pride and joy. Fruit and vegetables were canned for the winter. At the age of 70, I sold the farm to my son George, and we had a house built in town at 74 Danforth, which we enjoyed for many years. After this photo was taken in 1962, we were blessed with another daughter-in-law and 9 more grandchildren. Katya loved cooking, gardening, doing puzzles, needlepoint, embroidery, and crocheting. And this was a common sight at 74 Danforth. Some of the Thiessen clan were avid readers and still are. Journal entry, November 29th, 1954. The pen has rested for a long time. A lot of work has been done in this time. Crops harvested. We have loved, suffered, sinned, and received forgiveness. God's mercy has not left us. How great is God with his love and compassion, with his patience and forbearance. His goodness over us is new every morning. We should want to serve him. The sweet corn was good and produced 4 tons per acre. We started picking tomatoes late, but in spite of that had a good crop, 340 bushels per acre. Soon the rain set in, and it rained often and a lot, so the soybeans had to be harvested with a too high moisture content. We kept getting more rain, and harvesting got harder. The last of the beans needed 2 tractors to pull out the combine. Our George has decided to steer his life ship into the harbor of marriage. His chosen bride is Margaret Epp, and they celebrated their engagement on October 24th. May God bless them. On Sunday, on the first Advent, we celebrated communion. Art and Katie came home. They both looked good, and their business is going well. On November 20th, Elfrida celebrated her engagement to David Kruger, son of Henry Kruger. We had a very busy family. God blessed me with 7 beautiful daughters. April 20th, 1964. I've been quiet for a long time. A lot of water has flowed into the sea of eternity. A lot has happened in the world, among the people of the congregation, and our family too. Martha and Irene have studied and are now independent. Martha has worked in various places in the U.S. as a lab technician and is now working in Seattle at a kidney clinic. Irene has taught in Wheatley for 3 years and is paying room and board with us. Victor celebrated his wedding to Anita Dick from St. Catharines on November 16th, 1963. George and Hilda sold their farm on Concession 6 in Romney last year and bought one on Highway 3. And George and Margaret bought our farm in the fall and plan to move here this fall. We're having our house built in Leamington and we'll try living in town. May God give his blessing on what we have all done. November 18th, 1966. It was 32 degrees this morning. It was a cool day. In the afternoon, we went to the cemetery to put a wreath on Mother's grave. It has been 29 years since she left this earth. And now we're almost at the point where we must reserve your place, for you must die. Dear God, I ask through Jesus' blood you make my end good. Will they be able to say about me, he left a good footprint behind? In 1971, we celebrated our 50th anniversary. We invited 150 guests for a wonderful meal and program celebrating the goodness of God in our lives. And here are some of our anniversary portraits over the years, 25, 50, and 60 years. And here's a picture of the core family in 1977. December 25th, 1978. Our family feast was at Harry and Mary's this year. We went there after the church service and had our meal together, turkey, ham, and all the trimmings. After the food was cleaned up, the children presented a program, singing, poems, piano music, and guitar. They did their best. Then the older people sang a number of beautiful Christmas songs. Martha accompanied on the piano. There was conversation and games were played. It got pretty loud. The little children made sure that one couldn't always understand one's neighbor. It was very loud during the meal, too. The parents let it go. I wonder then, are we celebrating the birth of Christ in a proper fashion? Maybe everyone has to do it for himself and thank him for his coming. But the proper happiness belongs to the Christmas fest. In the evening, food was put out again, and we had so much put in front of us, and how little the thousands of hungry people have to still their hunger. Later, everyone went home. The first day of Christmas was over. What has it brought us? Are our hearts happy with the coming of the Lord? Have we thanked him for it? Have we strengthened our belief? Are we comforted looking to the future? January 23rd, 1981. Today is the day that Katya and I got married 60 years ago. A long time, and how has it gone? Well, there wasn't always sunshine. We also lived through many dark days. We had good health and sickness with the children too, but they always got well again. When we look back on our pilgrimage, we have had a lot of reasons to thank God for his mercy and patience with us. On the 24th of January, 1981, we celebrated our anniversary with an open house at the UMEI Auditorium. Many guests came to congratulate us and to wish us God's blessing. We are very thankful to God that we were able to celebrate our 60th anniversary. His mercy and grace is huge and has been during our life. Have we shown enough thanks for everything he has given us? This fest was to be an expression of our thankfulness. Did we do enough? February 21st, 1981. When I got up on the morning of February 12th, somewhat late, I was going to go into the kitchen. As I went by Katya's room, I saw her lying on the floor with her eyes closed. The fear was great. I tried to talk to her, but there was no answer. I called Erica, and we tried to lift her onto the bed, but she was too heavy for us, and we couldn't do it. I called Harry, and he came right away, and we put her onto the bed. We called the doctor right away and ordered an ambulance. The doctor said she'd had a stroke. Now she's lying in the hospital. Her left side is paralyzed and she can't talk, but her mind is clear. She understands when she is spoken to. She can move her right side, lift her arm, and squeeze my hand. She has to be fed. So far, the girls have done that, taking turns. They do therapy with her and give her a shower almost every day. The girls are giving a lot of time to care for her. We don't know yet whether or not she'll get her speech back, but it will take a long time. The dear Lord has laid this trouble on our shoulders. It's hard to say, "Thy will be done." Eventually, Katya regained her speech completely, but her left side remained paralyzed, and she was confined to a wheelchair. In September of 1981, I sold the house, and Erica and I moved into Camelot Shires. Katya was placed in long-term care at the Mennonite home when she was discharged from the hospital, and I was there to see her every day. In 1985, I fell and broke my hip, which left me needing the use of a walker or wheelchair. I was unable to continue life in the apartment, and so I joined Katya in the Mennonite home. It was heartwarming to see Katya more settled with me there. May God find us faithful in these last days of our journey. Gerhard Jakob Thiessen died on September 2nd, 1988. And his Katya followed him on February 12th, 1991, leaving a legacy of 116 descendants. But his legacy goes far beyond that. He fought the fight, he finished the race, and he remained faithful to his God. Such a deep, rich legacy. Brian Haynes, one of his grandsons, expressed the following: "I was proud and impressed, but not of the accomplishments Alma, Opa, and their families had achieved in the Ukraine. It was what they had done after. They held in the palm of their hands worldly riches that many today don't even dare to dream of having, and it was taken from them. Left with seemingly little of what they had possessed, they emigrated to Canada and started anew. In the years I knew Alma and Opa, they never mentioned any of this to me. As near as I can tell, in the many years that followed life in Ukraine, they focused on their faith, family, and fields, without rancor or bitterness about what might have been." End quote. My name is Linda Thiessen-Belch, and I am a granddaughter of Gerhard and Katharina Thiessen, and I too cherish their legacy of faith and perseverance. I am so grateful for Opa's journals and memoirs and sermons. It is in his writing that we can really appreciate how intertwined his faith and everyday life was. Throughout his journals, there is evidence of a deep, enduring trust and reliance on God and praise for him. He drew something spiritual from any circumstance. A doll's funeral, to a coiled-up snake, to all of life's circumstances. And I love his creative use of language. July 2024 marked the 100th anniversary of Alma and Opa's arrival in Canada, And so we wondered, how should we remember and celebrate our grandparents and the life we have enjoyed because of their decisions, sacrifice, perseverance, faith, and prayers? So we decided to have a massive party, the long weekend of June 28th to 30th in 2024. The main event took place Saturday and Sunday in my sister's beautiful backyard in Olinda. We had cousins from California, Thunder Bay, Amherst Island, Hamilton, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Essex County in attendance. Along with aunts and uncles, there were 71 in total. The party began Friday afternoon on a terrace at the Leamington Mennonite home to spend some time with aunts and uncles who would not be able to join us in Olinda. There was much conversation and laughter in this lovely venue. So here, let the party begin. A gorgeous afternoon on the terrace. We enjoyed conversation and lots of food, of course. There was lots of time to check out family memorabilia and to get caught up with each other. There was the opportunity to review the draft of the family book, The Next Generation, which is a follow-up to Aunt Martha's book, and it was available for perusing and editing. We had some interactive activities. This particular one was a map, and people put a pin in all the places that they had visited in the world. And I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but there's lots and lots of pins in that map. The Overtime Band entertained us during happy hour on Saturday, and their music added so much to the afternoon. And here you see just people enjoying that time. We celebrated any and every occasion. These three have partied together with 55, 65, 75, 60, 70, 80, and they were willing to share 65, 75, 85 with many others who are celebrating significant birthdays and anniversaries. And what a better way to end the day than with some fireworks. Sunday morning, after we shared breakfast, we gathered formally to remember, celebrate, share stories, songs, and we had a mini church service in honor of Aupa. We released 15 butterflies in honor of the 15 family members who had died to date. Each of Aupa's grandchildren read a portion of his journals, and there was opportunity for people to share a memory or thought. And of course, there's the family photo. The event was a huge success, and we are grateful to God for the legacy of our grandparents and for the opportunity to celebrate 100 years in Canada. At the crucial junctures of their lives, they did not depend on their wealth or possessions to save them. They put their faith in God and allowed Him to weave their experiences, decisions, and actions into a beautiful tapestry. For their descendants, their living and active faith determined the course of their lives, and this is worth remembering. Many of you in this room have parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents with similar stories, stories that we cherish and are grateful for, but it doesn't end there. We all have stories too. They are different than the ones we have heard, as they should be. There may or may not be as much drama, upheaval, or hardship, but there is still lots to be shared about our journey through life. What were your joys and blessings? What challenges have you faced and overcome? Where are the places you visited, the lessons you learned, successes you experienced, failures you endured and learned from? What were your reflections on how your family heritage has benefited you or not? Each one of us, whether we acknowledge it or not, have a wealth of stories and experiences to share with those who come behind us. And if that's not enough, you can always encourage and uplift your kids and grandkids by expressing your feelings for them, the potential you see in them, the qualities they exhibit, and how they are the sunshine in your life. It is time for the next generation to step up and tell stories. When you came in, you should have found a clothespin on your chair, and you might have wondered what that was all about. Well, Aupa always carried a clothespin in his pocket. Why, I don't know, but I do recall the occasional gentle pinch. Take this home with you as a reminder of the gift of legacy and lives well lived. I would like to thank Aunt Martha for her book, Gerhard, Jakob, and Katharina Thiessen, Their Ancestors and Dependents, a Scrapbook. This, along with Aupa's memoirs, journals, sermons, interview with Conrad Grebel, and conversations with Martha, were sources for this presentation. Thanks to Aunt Irene, who translated Aupa's journals and memoirs from German into English. He began keeping a journal in March of 1954, and he begins with, "I want to record some of the events and incidents that happened. Perhaps in later years, I or my descendants will be interested in what happened in the past. May the Lord bless this little bit too. What a privilege it has been for me to be able to fulfill this wish of his and to contribute to God's ask of us, which is to proclaim his might to another generation. Thank you for coming and listening. I hope that you have been blessed and encouraged by my Aupa's life, and I will conclude with these words from Aupa. Life in Canada has been good. Once again, by the grace of God, we prosper, and for this, we are grateful." Thank you. Now, does anybody have any questions?
Can you name all your first cousins?
All my first cousins? I can. Did you want me to do it? It's only been fairly recently that I've been able to remember the order of the kids in the family. They all came. They were born every 2 years, except there was a gap of 4 years between Aunt Martha and Aunt Frida, right? Yeah. So it's kind of it's easy to remember all their ages and everything because they're just 2 years. Lois?
There are a lot of things that
Lois was just commenting on Aupa and his quiet, gentle spirit. And it was interesting for me. Like I didn't know a lot of this stuff either, but when I read those stories from his childhood, I just laughed. Like I thought, oh my goodness, that to sort of document this and write this down was just so special. And he had a great sense of humor, the Thiessen dry sense of humor. Oh, Dave, did you have a question? Sorry. Well, when they were living in the Ukraine and Hochfeld, they had servants and maids but they didn't have 10 kids then. I guess that was before that time. I'm assuming they would, but by the time Uncle Vic came along, Aunt Hilda was gone already, and some of the kids were older and could help with the meal prep and stuff. So, Uncle Harry, did you get 3 meals a day? Did you get 3 meals a day when you were growing up? Yep, there you go. I remember my dad saying that they would sometimes bring lunch to school. And one day my grandma brought him a pail of rührei, and he was so embarrassed. He just ate it. I don't know what he did with it, but I don't think he ate it. Oh, it's like scrambled eggs with flour, and it's kind of a cross between pancakes and scrambled eggs. Yeah, well, we had it with tomato juice and onions, and then sugar for dessert.
Well, that was very impressive. For our first My Family Story, I thought Linda did an excellent job. She's a major leader in our family from a historical perspective. She's committed to collecting and writing and putting together photographs and things that some others don't do. It's a consideration for your family. As Linda said, at EKMHA, we're very committed to the preservation of the stories of our constituency. Think about your family and some of the stories that you may have. You may have somebody in your family that's interested in talking to us as we prepare to move forward with other events along these lines. There is a table at the back, and help me out, Linda, but I'll let you explain it.
On the table at the back, on the right side of the table, like if you're facing the table from here, is sort of information of the Thiessen family. So some of the books that I referenced, there's one of Opa's journals there, some of his sermons. So you can have a look at that. On the left side of the table are just different pieces of legacy work that I have done myself. If you want some ideas as to what you can do. There's a scrapbook that I made for my mother, her favorite hymns and why she liked them so much. There's a scrapbook that my mother put together of all the cards that my sister Heidi had sent them and the letters and stuff, so that she just sort of cut them out with her pinking shears and put it in the book and stuff and kept it that way. So there's just a few ideas there if you're interested in that sort of thing.
Thank you, Linda. Please join us and stay and socialize this evening. We've got a great audience and crowd. Several of the people actually that were in some of those pictures are here tonight. So that is really encouraging that we are sharing the stories of people that are still in our midst. And Linda, thank you again for collecting that information and putting it together tonight. There'll be coffee and tea, lovely apple pie made by Linda Dreger, and my mom, Lois Conrad, was kind enough to make a fresh plum plots this afternoon, so you won't want to miss that. Just to give you an idea of what's coming up, next week we have a soup and Sweebach night starting at 6 p.m. All of our events are open to the public, so some of you are getting evites and maybe confusing that you're invited to this. Yes, you're invited to this, but all events are public, so anybody that thinks that they're not being invited because they didn't get an evite, rest assured, or please explain to them, everybody is welcome to these events. We're just trying to gauge an idea of how many will be coming. So next Friday night at 6 p.m., Tina Quiring from the SWO Gleaners is going to be preparing one of their soup mixes, their dehydrated soup mix, and she's converting one of those into a chili concept also. And I'm happy to let you know that I went over and met with Gloria Thiessen, who helped me make fresh Sweebach. That will be at that evening's event also. So soup and Sweebach, 6 till 7, and then a presentation by Tina Quiring, chair for SWO Gleaners, and Joel Epp. Thank you very much for your support. You're the reason that we keep doing these events, so I hope you enjoyed it this evening. Please stay and socialize, and if you have questions, I'm sure Linda would be happy to stick around and answer them. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.